Welcome to AI Horror Stories. Prepare to be chilled. Ghost, even the cute guy can hide a horrifying secret. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell for daily doses of AI-generated fright. 1 Waiter. The Waiter is a true scary story about a young woman who goes out to a restaurant on a blind date. When my mother was young, she went out on a blind date. Her date took her to a restaurant, and although he was nice enough, she just wasn't into him. Halfway through the meal she was so bored that she was already thinking of excuses so that she could leave early. The waiter could tell she was bored and kept smiling and winking at her. While my mom's date was in the restroom, the waiter approached her and started asking her if she was okay. She explained that she was on a blind date, but she wasn't having much fun. It turned out that the waiter was just about to get off work. He offered to give my mother a ride home if she waited another 10 minutes. She considered it and was tempted to say yes, but just then her date came back from the restroom. She shook her head, smiled at the waiter and told him, "No thanks." My mom and her date finished their meals, and he drove her home. The next night, my mom happened to be watching the evening news. There was a newsflash saying that a woman had been found murdered behind a restaurant the night before. She realized it was the same restaurant she had been at with her date. Then they said that the police had already caught the killer. A picture flashed up on the screen. It was the waiter. 2 The vanishing hitchhiker. A newlywed couple, Nathan and Heather, were driving up the Northern California coast to spend their dream honeymoon in a quaint bed and breakfast with a seaside view. They had hoped to arrive before dark, but a heavy fog had descended on Highway 1 and their progress was slow. They were at least an hour and a half from their destination as night fell. If you've ever driven that stretch of highway, you know how torturous it can be, with its narrow lanes and switchback curves. It was just as they were rounding one of those curves that they passed a solitary hitchhiker, a young woman in a wispy white dress standing on the shoulder with thumb outstretched. "Good luck getting a ride on a night like this," muttered Nathan under his breath. "Stop the car and turn around," said Heather. "Please, she's all alone. We have to give her a ride. But we're 2 hours late. Please." Nathan pulled off the road and turned around. As they approached the girl from the opposite direction, they could see her dress was in tatters. Her face was pale and gaunt. "Can we give you a ride?" Heather smiled at her as they pulled up beside her. "Oh, thank you." The young woman appeared to be in her late teens or early 20s. "I have to get home. My parents will be worried sick." "Where do you live?" asked Nathan. "Just down the road, about 10 miles, she said, climbing into the back seat. "There's an intersection with an abandoned gas station. Across from there. It's a white house with a rose garden. They're waiting for me." As they made their way north again, Heather attempted to make conversation, but the girl fell silent and slumped in the back seat, apparently asleep. After about 15 minutes, Nathan spotted a dilapidated service station. "Is this it?" he asked. "Hey, is this the intersection?" Heather turned to wake the young woman and her breath caught. "Nathan, she's gone." "What do you mean, she's gone?" Nathan said, pulling into the driveway of the White House. "How can she be gone?" She was right. The hitchhiker had vanished. A light came on and 2 people, an elderly couple, stepped out onto the porch. "Can we help you?" The man looked as though he dreaded hearing the answer. "I don't know," Nathan began. "We were driving, and we picked up this hitchhiker, a girl. And she gave you this address and asked you to bring her home," the man finished. "Yes," said Heather. "How did you dash?" "And then she was gone." Heather nodded. "You aren't crazy. And you're not the first. She was our daughter. Her name was Diane. She passed away 7 years ago, killed by a hit-and-run driver on the highway. They never caught whoever did it. But I guess her spirit won't rest until they do." 3 Cute guy. When I was in high school, I was a really naive, sheltered teenager. We lived in a really close community where there was never any crime. There was a married couple who moved in at the end of our block. They had 2 boys. One was the same age as me and the other was 2 years older. There's no nice way to put this. The boy who was my age was really ugly. He looked kind of like Sloth from the Goonies. However, his older brother was a really cute guy. I mean, he looked like a model. I sat next to Sloth, the younger brother, in a few of my classes at school. I also worked on some projects with him. One day, when I was sitting beside him in class, I started making idle chit-chat with him. He looked straight into my eyes and said, "You better watch out. My older brother likes you and the last girl he liked is the reason we had to move." I was so shocked, I didn't know what to say. He made it sound so grave and serious. That was all he said to me. A few weeks later, my parents went out shopping and I was left home alone. It was night time and all of a sudden, I heard the doorbell ring. When I answered the door, there was nobody there. Then, I noticed a small envelope with my name on it sitting on the doormat. I opened it. Well, the contents were disturbing to say the least. It was a long poem about me being attacked by a man in a cape who sneaked up on me, knocked me out with chloroform, then tied me up and brought me back to his basement where he did unspeakable things to me. I thought it must be one of my friends pulling a prank on me. I called my friend on the phone and told her, "You got me." The poem was super creepy and really freaked me out. She had no idea what I was talking about. All of a sudden, while I was on the phone with her, I heard something banging against the back door of the house. It was soft at first, but it got louder and louder and kept going on and on. Then, the banging suddenly stopped and everything was silent. I was still convinced it must be one of my friends playing a trick, so I peeked out kitchen window. I couldn't see anyone. I was still on the phone with my friend and she was yelling at me to call the police. Just then, the doorbell rang again. I creeped down the hall, pressed myself up to the door and peeked out the peephole. Nobody was there, but I could make out a large black lump on the front porch. I couldn't see what it was, so I flicked the switch for the porch light, but it didn't come on. At this point, I was so scared, I was about to have a heart attack. My friend convinced me to hang up and call the police. A few minutes later, a squad car came by and I looked out the window. Across the street, under a street lamp, I could see the older brother, the cute guy. He was just standing there, smoking a cigarette and watching my house. The police went up and questioned him. Then, I saw them try to search him, but he started fighting and they had to tackle him to the ground. Eventually, they managed to put the handcuffs on him. When they searched him, they found a lot of things: the light bulb from my porch light, a jar of chloroform, a length of rope and a bloody knife. It was bloody because the black lump on my porch was the next-door neighbor's cat. He had killed it and carved my name in it. The older brother was a really cute guy, but he was mentally disturbed. He was really crazy and his parents didn't care. The younger brother had tried to warn me. I felt bad about calling him Sloth. He turned out to be one of the smartest and nicest guys in my high school. I think he gave me such a cryptic warning because he was afraid of his older brother. He was scared that his brother would find out and maybe hurt him. I also felt terrible for the family next door and their cat that was killed.